Casual and super fans of Big Brother alike have most likely heard something similar to these phrases. This player was robbed by a bitter jury. This player was such a bitter juror. I can't believe this person was so bitter. However, do we actually know what a bitter juror is? We tend to throw around the term a lot because of how seemingly straightforward the idea is, but there are far more complexities and nuances to the concept that tend to go unnoticed and unrecognized. So in this video, I wanted to delve deeper into discovering a true understanding of what bitter jurors are and all of the impacted areas, ranging from the different reasonings for being bitter to the fascinating dualistic nature of bitterness. So with all of that preamble out of the way, it is the one and only RJ21 here, and let's talk about the philosophy of bitter jurors in Big Brother. First and foremost, let's establish a clear baseline understanding of what a bitter juror is. While there is no concrete definitive definition for what a bitter juror is, bitter jurors are often recognized as players who do not cast their jury vote for gameplay reasons, but more so because of personal negative associations with a specific finalist or finalists. Most people don't like or respect bitter jurors because of how they take away from the gameplay aspect of Big Brother, but I'm perfectly fine with them because we have to remember that Big Brother is a social strategy game with an emphasis on the social aspect. Sometimes we get so enveloped with how good of a strategic game house guests are playing that we tend to forget that Big Brother is primarily a social game, meaning how you treat others and how much others respect you has drastic ramifications on the outcome of the game. This is where bitter jurors originate from, as poor social play and poor management of jurors is what makes players bitter against specific people. However, the concept of bitter jurors is a pretty large umbrella term, as there are a lot of reasons as to why a juror could be bitter. In my opinion, there are two main classifications: grudge holders and sore losers. Keep in mind that these aren't the only reasons why jurors could be bitter, but these are, more often than not, the primary reasonings for bitterness. Grudge holders are players who are bitter for personal, non-game related reasons, holding vendettas against specific house guests. Whether it's because of something a specific player did or a juror simply not liking the finalists for the way they conducted themselves within the house, grudge holders cast their jury vote based on their negative feelings about a player. Think of someone like Jocasta on Big Brother 16 who didn't vote for Derek because of personal reasons.
He was fake praying with me. That's something you don't do with me. I don't play that.
So you're going to hold that against him?
So I'm going to keep it. Yeah, I'm going to hold on to it, squeeze it tight, pour all the lemon out of it. It's going to stay bitter. Ain't no sugar going to come in that baby.
On the other hand, sore losers are players who are bitter for game-related reasons, unable to cope with the fact that they were manipulated and or outplayed by other players. Instead of recognizing the caliber of gameplay being exemplified, sore losers claim they simply don't respect how a player has played the game. Sore losers cast their jury vote on their negative feelings about a player's gameplay. Think of someone like Jason and Alex from Big Brother 19.
I'm absolutely a sore loser.
Thank you for your honesty.
While the classifications and general understanding of bitter jurors are pretty easy to understand, this leads us into our next big question. If a juror votes bitterly, whose fault is it? Is it the finalist's fault or the juror's fault? Both sides have very compelling and valid arguments as to why the blame should be placed onto the other party. On one hand, a bitter jury vote is the finalist's fault because the finalist is the one responsible for creating those bitter feelings in the first place. Jury management is often perceived as one of the most important elements of a finalist's endgame, and if a finalist mismanages a jury, it should be the finalist's fault as to why a juror votes bitterly. On the other hand, a bitter jury vote is the juror's fault because they are unable to look past their negative, bitter feelings and evaluate the finalist's game objectively. Jurors have the responsibility of separating the personal and game aspects of Big Brother when evaluating a finalist's game and should cast their jury vote for gameplay reasons. Bitter jurors, however, are letting their bitterness cloud their judgment about a house guest game, creating an inherent bias against a finalist. Let's do a mini case study to exemplify each side's points and compare two modern seasons of Big Brother, Big Brother 19 and Big Brother 21. Paul had abysmal jury management as they were incapable of owning up to their deceitful gameplay and unnecessarily lied to their fellow jurors, even in positions where they had the opportunity to be fully transparent and have little to no repercussions, such as the goodbye messages or the final jury questioning. So, because of Paul's poor jury management serving as an example, you could reasonably conclude that the jury's bitterness is the finalist's fault. However, the jurors themselves did not do a very good job in expressing their thoughts about Paul objectively. Despite how impressive Paul's gameplay was throughout the entire season, many of the jurors constantly undermined and diminished the caliber of Paul's gameplay. Even if they were blindsided, backstabbed, or lied to by Paul, these bitter jurors should be able to put their bitter feelings aside and respect Paul's gameplay. Let's look at the Big Brother 21 jury for comparison. The Big Brother 21 jury had every right in the world to be bitter against Mickey for personal, non-game related reasons. Mickey was, for lack of a better term, a douchebag, and was extremely despisable at times, as he was an asshole for seemingly no reason. Jurors who voted for Mickey to win, such as Cliff, Christy, Tommy, and Annalise, had every right in the world to be bitter against Mickey because of how much they openly disliked and disagreed with how Mickey conducted himself within the house, yet they still voted for him to win on the basis of his gameplay. If the Big Brother 21 jury was able to put their bitter feelings aside and vote based on gameplay, why couldn't the Big Brother 19 jury do the same? In this context, you can reasonably conclude the jury's bitter votes are the jurors' fault. Both arguments are perfectly logical, and I can completely understand both sides. In my opinion, and I personally hate giving this type of response because it feels like a bit of a cop-out, but I personally believe that the blame of bitterness depends on the situation. The situation in question is how justifiable is a juror's bitterness? Is the basis of a juror's bitterness reasonable? This ties back into the classifications of bitter jurors I talked about earlier. I believe that, for the most part, grudge holders are completely justified because their bitterness is directly derived from the personal actions of a finalist. I do, however, have to emphasize that it is for the most part because there are certainly extraneous circumstances in which the basis for a grudge holder's bitter feelings are not justified. However, instances such as Candace being bitter against Gina Marie in Big Brother 15, Cody being bitter against Paul in Big Brother 19, and Bailey being bitter against Tyler in Big Brother 20 are completely justified because each of them were a victim of one of the finalists' actions, with each of them being on the receiving end of poor and downright disrespectful behavior.
Made my life in the top of hell! You are
Anything to you, Bailey. Oh my God, how did that get so far?
On the other hand, I don't believe sore losers are justified in their bitterness because their bitter jury vote is based on a lack of respect for a finalist's gameplay. A juror's role is supposed to be evaluating each of the finalists' games holistically and then determining which of the finalists played the better game. But sore losers are unable to do this because of how they let their negative feelings about a player's gameplay deter them from accurately assessing the finalists. If a bitter juror got lied to, blindsided, or backstabbed, it's entirely hypocritical for that juror to be upset at the finalist because that is the inherent nature of the game. While it is possible to get to the end of the game while remaining loyal and never lying to anyone, nearly everyone lies and backstabs one another. So you can't stand on a moral high horse all of a sudden and act like lying and acting deceitful is the most heinous crime in the world when done to you when you literally did those same things. Instances such as Shane being bitter against Dan in Big Brother 14, Michelle being bitter against Nicole in Big Brother 18, and Jason and Alex being bitter against Paul in Big Brother 19 are completely unjustified.
So I lied to Josh, then I guess by your standards.
Another area of bitter jurors I wanted to talk about is the dualistic nature of bitterness. A lot of people believe that bitterness is the end-all be-all reason as to how a bitter juror casts their jury vote, and while that can be true, that isn't always necessarily the case. Being bitter is not mutually exclusive, meaning you can be both bitter against one finalist and supportive of another finalist. Most bitter jury votes are anti-someone, but that doesn't mean it can't be pro-someone else. Let's do another mini case study between Big Brother 19 and Big Brother Canada 12. I know I keep referring back to Big Brother 19, but it is simply the most rich in examples of bitterness. Every juror who voted for Josh to win didn't vote for him because they wanted him to win, but more so because they wanted Paul to lose, meaning each of their jury votes were anti-Paul votes. On the other hand, the primarily bitter jurors in Big Brother Canada 12 in Victoria, Avery, Kayla, and Tola were certainly anti-Anthony, but they were also pro-Bailey. This means that they both wanted Anthony to lose and wanted Bailey to win. Bitterness was not the definitive determining factor as to why those jurors voted for Bailey to win, as they were actively rooting for Bailey and wanted to grant her the win regardless of Anthony. While those bitter feelings against Anthony were definitely prevalent and a contributing factor in Anthony's loss, the bitter jurors' jury votes were not anti-Anthony, but more so pro-Bailey.
Bailey one day, Troy.
This leads me to the final aspect of bitter jurors I wanted to discuss. The idea that the quote-unquote more deserving player was robbed of the win. While bitter jurors do this more often than not, it once again is not always the case. Case in point, Anthony in Big Brother Canada 12. While I personally believe Anthony played a better game than Bailey as a whole, Anthony was not robbed of a win. He made a lot of detrimental mistakes in the endgame that contributed to his loss, as there were certainly winning scenarios he, more than likely, could have put himself in, but he instead chose to go the suboptimal route.
Where did Anthony go wrong the last time he played?
The way I kind of see it was that, like, people trusted Anthony more, so they were hurt more by him going against them, which is kind of like history repeating itself.
In contrast, Bailey did a lot of great work in building strong bonds with jurors that actively campaigned for Bailey to win. The fact that she beats anybody in the Final Four is damn impressive, and we can't undermine Bailey's impressive endgame maneuvering because of the jury's bitter feelings against Anthony.
I never changed who I was for this game. I changed this game for who I was. In this game of Big Brother, I am your big sister, and it's time that we let them know. Girls is players too.
Thank you. Thank you, Bailey.
While this is only a single isolated instance, this speaks on a greater scale to how bitter juries don't always rob players of the win. Bitter jurors as a whole are a very fascinating concept that tend to be oversimplified by the community. It can be easy to label any given juror as bitter if you don't understand or agree with their reasoning. However, I firmly believe that understanding the true nature of bitter jurors will help us better understand any future instances. But those are just my thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you have any of those, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
What?